Is your magic meter running low? Well, we've got a cure for you. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePauli, and today on the show I have my buddy Pablo, who just released his first Disney jazz album, joining me to discuss the live entertainment available for guests to enjoy while strolling around New Orleans Square in Disneyland Park. I love having conversations with people featuring topics they're passionate about, so Pablo's love and knowledge of jazz, live entertainment, and Disney made him the perfect person to have this discussion with. In addition to that conversation, Pablo shares details about his new album, Swingin' with the Mouse, and discusses the talented folks from various Disney projects who you can hear on this new album. That's all coming your way right after this. Did you know that Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development? You can download titles and listen offline, anytime, anywhere. Plus, the app is completely free and can be installed on all smartphones and tablets, allowing you to listen across devices without losing your spot. And there are so many different audiobook topics to choose from. If you're inspired after listening to today's episode and want to learn more about the jazz music of the real-life New Orleans, get yourself a free copy of the audiobook, A Trumpet Around the Corner, The Story of New Orleans Jazz, by visiting audibletrial.com/DCTC. If you're looking for more traditional Disney titles, you can get those for free as well at audibletrial.com/DCTC. Simply search Disney in the search bar over at audibletrial.com/DCTC. So what are you waiting for? Get your free audiobook today by heading over to audibletrial.com/DCTC.
It's time to dive into today's Disney dialogue.
Pablo, welcome to the show. Your first time here, Mr. Pablo Rasil. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I really appreciate you inviting me.
Yes, and today we're talking about, I gotta say, one of my favorite things. In fact, I'm gonna say my favorite thing about the Disney parks is the live entertainment. To me, it is the heartbeat of the Disney parks. Where do you stand on this?
I think you're absolutely correct. If not the heartbeat, the soul, which is almost indescribable. Like, you know, there's science that can explain a heartbeat, but the soul itself, it's something that can't be explained. And I think although we can define what instruments are played or what arrangements are done, you can't really pinpoint why something is so magical as music is in the parks.
I like that, what you said there, where the heartbeat is scientific, you can explain it, and the soul is something you just feel. I like that. I've actually never heard that before.
I just made it up.
You're already starting with some gems, and we're less than a minute in. I love this. Now, of course, we are living in a time where live entertainment in the Disney parks is limited. I will say from what I've seen, they're doing a good job dealing with it the best that they can. Did you, by any chance, happen to see this Winnie the Pooh video that was put out by them recently?
That was so cute. So I just finished, on Instagram, I'm very inactive when it comes to like following things, but I finally followed just the generic Disney, at Disney.
Sure.
And they posted it there, and I saw it was Epcot. I was like, that is genius.
Yeah.
That is amazing. That's the way to do it. Like, he's literally, I don't want to say caged off. That sounds wrong.
He's behind a fence.
He's behind a fence.
Not a fence, a guardrail, let's say.
Yeah.
You know.
Nobody's going to jump over it. Everybody knows they can't, go touch him. But he's in plain sight, and he's living in his world, and we're a part. It just makes it gives it a fourth dimension.
Yeah, he's trying to catch butterflies.
Yeah.
And honestly, I see this, and there's so much of this sort of socially distant encounters with characters and stuff happening right now, and I'm honestly like, I hope this stuff never goes away. Of course, I would love the meet and greets and the close interactions to come back as well. But this whole like living in the world, it's not only making the best out of a bad case, but like doing it really quite brilliantly, it seems like, and so simply.
I want to see Buzz Lightyear on the People Mover track, just like zooming around or something. I think that would be really cool. Like
I keep saying the Muppets are good characters for this. You know, the having them out of second story windows and stuff as we see in Liberty Square, but like wherever, right? The Muppets are so adaptable.
Yeah, that was just recently discontinued before this all started, right?
It's kind of become a seasonal thing, and it's it's not due to lack of popularity. It's actually tests quite well. People love the Muppets in Liberty Square. It's just one of those things where on the spreadsheets, it's why are people coming to the park? Why are they coming to Magic Kingdom? And it's not to see the Muppets. Regardless that people enjoy it, it's not the reason they're going. So It's one of those things that gets cut. And, that's the reality of live entertainment in the parks, is that it's always one of the first things to get cut. But like you said, it is the soul of the parks. And that's why I am such a diehard fan of it. And because of that, I really want to shine a light on some live entertainment that people don't necessarily think about today. So we're going to head to New Orleans Square in Disneyland Park, where they have a lot of unofficial quote-unquote happenings. Now, these really are in the schedule, but people don't necessarily look at these types of small shows. And it's not like a Mickey and the Magical Map or a Fantasmic where you're like, okay, I'm going to set aside some time today to go experience this. This is more like it's a happenstance, right? You walk past it and it's like, oh, this is happening. Let me have this moment and enjoy it. And New Orleans Square is really full of a few of these that I think people forget about and sometimes might not even realize are separate groups in some cases. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think there are, and it stems back to the beginning of that section of the park. I think the focus has always been to honor that musical liberty that is found in actual New Orleans. And I think they keep that flame alive at Disneyland in different styles, in various styles, yeah.
And now, before we go any further, is it New Orleans, New Orleans, or Nolans?
Nolans. Let's just say Nolans. I love
Nolans?
it.
No, which one do you go with? I usually say New Orleans, and I'm always curious what people say.
I think I say New Orleans because that's, my knowing of the city predates it, but Dr. John says, down in New Orleans in the song. And that's just so ingrained in my brain.
Yeah. What would you say, Pirates of the Caribbean or Pirates of the Caribbean?
I think I say Caribbean.
Yeah. I say it Caribbean in every other case except for that ride. It's Pirates of the Caribbean. And I'm like, I don't know why it was instilled this way. But in any case, let's start talking about these amazing groups that are there. I want to start with the Bootstrappers.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen these folks live?
I have. Those are the ones, I think, of all the bands that I see more in passing. They're fun. Their style is not like the other bands that play New Orleans Square. It's shanties, It's a bunch of shanties actual shanties from seafarers that would stop in New Orleans or ports like that. And it's Disney's way of honoring the mixing of different styles. And I think that in itself is interesting. The instrumentation as well is a little different to the other bands.
For sure. And this is a pirate band, essentially. And it's made up of scallywags and pirates. And it has a very kind of like Renaissance fair feel to it, I would say.
Yeah. It's acoustic. And different to the other ones in the area. It's more movable. They walk around and their instruments move with them.
Well, here's one of the interesting things, and we'll get to this. Most of the groups in New Orleans Square actually are mobile or have many different places that they play. And it's interesting, having seen them in person and the different videos, you're like, oh, and the thing that's so interesting to me is, so a lot of this is jazz inspired, right? And jazz is a very kind of, improvisational type of music. And when you think of Disney, in most cases, we think of kind of a controlling company who very much wants to control their image and how things are done, and everything's very kind of cookie cutter in a certain way and repeated in a certain way. And it's the complete opposite, I found, with what we experience in New Orleans Square with these live entertainers. Because having seen multiple videos and in person, sometimes these groups are like mixed up with different instruments. It's usually, you know, like with the Bootstrappers, we've got guitar, accordion, fiddle, recorder, standing bass, and then singing, but not necessarily all on the same day. So like if a bass player's out one day, you might get, you know, some other instrument coming in to replace it. And I'm like, it's just so fascinating because it's just so much less quote unquote controlled, more so than other areas of the park, you know? And I found that really fascinating to see.
Right. I think that is what makes it beautiful. That's what adds that layer for me that I might not lock into their style necessarily compared to the other styles of the other bands, but there's magic in it being a different show every single time.
Yeah.
And it being a revisitable show. And they're fantastic. They're fantastic musicians and comedians.
That's the thing about all of these groups we're going to talk about is like these musicians are phenomenal. And it's kind of, you know, New Orleans laid back, easy kind of lifestyle. And the musical groups kind of feel that way as well, to the point that you might be like, they're phoning it in. But you're like, wait a second, no, like they're playing brilliantly. They're just making it look ridiculously easy, which is a hard thing to do, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know, they're just impressive to me. And this group, I love the fact that they play so much with the audience, more than any other group anywhere in Disneyland, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, they are a very musical comedy troupe, I think.
Absolutely.
I think, first and foremost, and as it should be, because they're in the middle of a theme park with a bunch of people that they're trying to, you know, entertain every single day for many sets, you have to keep it fresh. And the special thing about a group like the Bootstrappers is that you could tell they're having fun. You could tell that it's about the fun, and their talents are being lent to amplify that fun.
Now, one of the other things I always love in Disney parks or Disney projects in general is, you know, they have a very family-friendly story that they tell, but I always find it funny when, like, these things creep through that you're like, wait a sec, did they just say that, or did I just see that, or whatever? And I was watching a video, and the one of them said, they go, one of our favorite things to sing about, murder on the high seas. I'm just like, when you wish upon a star.
I mean, those are the bits of realism that I think our society now latches onto more so than before. You know, it was... I think when Disney started, society may have been a little more fantastical as a whole. You know, the world sort of took stuff in a certain way. But now, in our times, there are certain things that just slip in and they're found funny, you know?
Yeah, but at the same time, I feel like we're at a heightened sense of sensitivity more than I've ever seen in my life, where things like that are also noted, complained about, and removed. So,
right.
So therefore, I think it's funny when it's like, do people get what's going on over here?
Yeah.
You know, like, it's funny. It's just very funny. A murder on the high seas. All right.
Next to the Pirates of the Caribbean or like a churro stand.
well, that's the other thing. Like the whole scene with Pirates of the Caribbean that was recently, you know, what was it, a year and a half ago, changed with the auction and everything. My argument is always, they're still pointing guns at me. I'm like, we're okay with that? All right.
He still wants the redhead.
Yeah, exactly.
There are guns in here.
Speaking of the redhead, one thing I really like about the Bootstrappers is there are several female pirate performers as part of the Bootstrappers. So everybody's talking and excited about Red being the pirate, you know, the female pirate in Pirates of the Caribbean now. And I'm like, look back. The Bootstrappers have had female pirates for far longer than that attraction, which is kind of cool.
And they play a mean fiddle too, so...
Yeah, I really... they're really, really good. This is probably my favorite group that performs in New Orleans Square. I have a feeling that that's not the case for you because you are a big jazz person, which we'll get to in a second. But I do want to mention that a lot of times the Bootstrappers are performing Monday through Thursday, sometimes Monday through Friday, which I find very interesting as well. Usually when it comes to, specialty entertainment, it's just when the crowds are the biggest, which would be, of course, on the weekends. So I find it interesting that they kind of bring them in when it is slower because it's super intimate and they can travel around. They've performed tons of locations. The entrance of Pirates of the Caribbean, I've seen them at. Sometimes like within the shops of New Orleans Square, even on Pirates Lair sometimes. So they're very mobile, and I kind of love that. And listen, I get there's a schedule to them, and I'm sure they know where they're going to be placed and everything, but there is such a feeling of just improvisation to what they're doing and just a happening. And I love that.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about seeing a literal band of misfits floating around the rivers of America, which I find very, very entertaining. Like, where else will you see a band floating around and making merry?
Yeah, they're even on the barges sometimes, aren't they? It's crazy. But let's move on to another group, the Jambalaya Jazz Band.
Yeah.
And these are the folks. Now, you're a huge jazz fan, so
yeah.
How do you like the Jambalaya Jazz Band?
I think they are probably my favorite of the of that area of the park. It's such a traditional sound, and they actually stick to traditional sets, like traditional music. Which, again, just like the Bootstrappers and their style, they're honoring something that actually was. And they're keeping, sort of like the Dapper Dans on Main Street USA are representation of the style, the barbershop style that actually happened in that era. Both the Bootstrappers and Jambalaya are honoring something that factually happened in history. And I find it fascinating that we can keep it alive so long. And I mean, thanks to somewhere like Disney, or there aren't many places like it, but thanks to Disney, we get to get a taste of what it was actually like.
It's totally true that you say that, like, thanks to Disney, because, I mean, barbershop quartets are something that don't exist anymore unless you're talking about, Main Street USA. And now some other theme parks do similar things. And, acapellas kind of come back into style in some way, shape, or form. But it is true. Disney not only, like, keeps it alive, but also employs a lot of people who this is their livelihood, and I always think of that, like, if I were a musician, a Disney gig seems like a great gig. Like, if I were into marching bands, the Disneyland Band would probably be my dream gig. Like, I love them. I've talked about them so much on this show. I will easily go to Disneyland and just follow them all day. I love the Disneyland Band. But, I mean, other than that, if you're a marching band performer, where are you getting steady employment other than Disneyland or Walt Disney World or wherever?
I mean, I think there's no comparison. It's either you teach at a school, and it's great to teach, that's an awesome gig, but it gets a little redundant after a while, or you literally make magic for 3 or 4 sets a day, and you see kids smile, and you see new people every day. And you get to work on your craft, as you had mentioned. I think it's a very special place. Yeah, now if you're hearing the name Jambalaya Jazz Band and you can't picture them, if you've walked through New Orleans Square and you've seen these folks, their costumes do kind of change throughout the seasons and stuff, but they wear the black fedoras and they have the individual color vests a lot of the time. And I've seen them perform on the Mark Twain before, which is really cool, but also over by that staircase that's kind of a viewing area for Fantasmic over by Cafe Orleans. And the thing that's interesting about this is, like we mentioned before, like, depending on where they are, their instruments can change. So when they're on the Mark Twain setup, like, they'll have like a small drum kit on there. But if they're over in the staircase in Cafe Orleans, they might just have like a snare drum and a bass or something like that. And they tend to have trombone, trumpet, a tenor, saxophone, and a clarinet, sousaphone, sometimes banjo. Once again, it kind of depends on what day you're catching it and who's coming to work, which is so on Disney. It kind of cracks me up. It bears repeating. Yeah, there is the core rhythm section, which is typically, like you said, the drums. the bass, which in this case is tuba. But on the ship you've seen, or on not the ship, I'm sorry, on the Mark Twain you've seen a bass, a stand-up bass.
I believe I've seen a stand-up bass there. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously the banjo for the chords, but the winds you could that's the beauty of jazz itself, but also a group like this, you can mix and match and make it a different show every time.
Yeah, it's really incredible. Like you said, they play a lot of jazz and American standards. This is not the group so much. They may do it a little bit, but not as much of the Disney music in a jazz style. We got another group for that. And
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. This is a lot of improvisation, right? In the jazz world, there's a lot of, take your 32 bars or whatever and improvise on your instrument, and they kind of, feature each instrument one at a time. And this band does a lot of that.
Yeah, they again, like you had mentioned, in jazz, it's mostly like take your time, take your moment to shine, and we'll give it to each person as we can. This one's a little more formulated than the newer, more contemporary styles of jazz, but they do have that section where that sweet clarinet is just blowing away at a solo, or where the trombone is just sliding up and down. My favorite section of any of these songs, honestly, is when they all improvise at the same time. I don't know if you've caught that musically, but there's a section where they play the melody, then they go into solos, and then typically they end out big, and everybody's just improvising. Maybe the trumpet's on the melody, but they freely just improvise together, which shows how together they actually are as musicians.
Yeah, it's incredible to think about. Like, I'm sure most people know that musicians are usually reading notes on a page, but in the case of jazz and these improv sections, they know what scale they're in, essentially.
Yeah.
And they're like, just riff on it, which is like a whole separate skill set. And just musicians in general, gosh, I wish I studied music as a kid. I played saxophone in, high school and middle school, and I studied piano as a kid and singing high school and college and all that stuff. So I have knowledge of music, but these folks blow my, their skill levels are such an insane level. Something that people don't know, to go on a little bit of a tangent here, is when it comes to movie scores, I've worked on a studio a lot, and I always loved seeing the musicians come in to go score a film or a show or whatever, and they never have music when they come in. They don't know what they're going to play that day. It's literally those pages of black dots are put in front of them that morning, and they're said, play. And of course, the composer, the conductor is going to make tweaks and changes. But for, I'd say 95% of the people in the world, you could listen to that first take and think, golden, we got it. One take, right? That's their skill level, which is insanity.
And if you want to layer that a little bit, going off on that tangent, it used to be that they'd have full orchestras that would move together and play different scores, and they'd know each other, they know each other's way of playing and styles. And now it's just session musicians, random people that are put together for specific movies, and that in itself is, I think, an extra layer of magic.
Yeah, it's as someone who cannot play like that, it's just kind of unfathomable, right? It's
right. I'm right there with you.
They play their instruments the way that we drive a car. You're kind of just on auto drive, where you're doing your thing. You know where the buttons are in your car, and most of the time you're doing all right. Hopefully, it's incredible. I'm just so impressed. By the way, the Jambalaya Jazz Band. If you want some Mardi Gras beads, they often have them. So. Watch out, they might throw them at you, and you can enjoy them.
I'll catch them.
Yeah, and they're not the only ones who have those Mardi Gras beads. Also, the Royal Street Bachelors Jazz Band often has them as well. These folks, you've probably seen those black button-down shirts with the colored neckties and pants, very often performing on the French Market stage. Sometimes over at the New Orleans Square train station, which I really think is a fun place to just kind of run into the band as well. And these folks, less traditional, sometimes traditional music, but oftentimes a little bit of a zippity-doo-dah, or You Got a Friend in Me thrown in there in a jazz style.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Speaking about that, I mean, the Jambalaya Jazz is more of a Dixie or a second line style. which predates jazz as we know it. And, when the big band started playing in the 30s, they added different elements. A four trumpet section, 5 saxophones, 4 trombones, and a rhythm section. And the Royal Street Bachelors actually are a further iteration of a combo. So it's like the Jambalaya Jazz's grandchild, basically, in style. And they, like you said, they play stuff from the Disney songbook, which makes them my second favorite because I obviously I love Disney. They're the only ones in that area that do it,
Yeah. You will get a little bit with the Bootstrappers. You'll get Yo-Ho, Yo-Ho every once in a while.
Sure.
Which is nice and very appropriate for them. But yeah, you're right. We're getting kind of the traditional Disney music with them. With them, we've got drums, electric guitar, which I think is unique to that group. The bugle, I think I noticed. Clarinet. This instrument that looked like a thin bass. Do you know what that was?
That's an electric upright. Obviously, it's a newer contraption, but that's honestly for space. If they had the space, they'd probably have a full-on upright bass.
Okay. And then sometimes they have a singer with them. The character's name is Queenie. It's a female singer that you'll see with them sometimes as well. So, another option, I'm betting a lot of people listening to this right now, and even I was a little bit surprised by this because I don't think I ever stopped to think about there are these 3 separate groups there on a regular basis. I probably took them for granted and thought of one being the same, So it's kind of incredible. I mean, in an age where, gosh, I don't want to put this out in the universe, but in an age where budgets are cut and live entertainment seems to be the first thing to go, it's kind of shocking that we still have all of this great live entertainment available in this one little land in Disneyland. Unbelievable.
It's the most appropriate place to put it. I mean, yeah, the front gate and Main Street, absolutely there should be music, of live music, but Nolans is where the music is at, and you can't really have Nolans without music. So I think they've done a good job to consistently keep it as legit as possible.
Yeah. Now, one place that sometimes I've seen different groups perform at is Walton Roy's balcony in New Orleans Square. Do you know what I'm talking about here? On the second level.
Yeah, the one with the W and the R.
In the R in gold currently,
nice.
Where it's that second level where you probably see people up there watching Fantasmic, and you're always like, "How'd you get those seats?" It's kind of, I think it used to be part of the Dream Suite. Now it's part of that fancy. I forget that Club 33 extension. What the name of that restaurant is, where it's like $14,000 to eat dinner or something crazy like that. But in any case, up there, sometimes you'll see them performing up there, which is I mean, I've never been to New Orleans, but that's what I always hear. It's just every corner you turn, you're hearing different groups playing different music, and you're just coming across it. And there's so many areas in New Orleans, in that tiny New Orleans square, that you just turn a corner and there's a group performing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of, again, the authenticity. That's truly how it is. And they're playing from balconies. They're playing in New Orleans, at least. They're playing in bars. They're playing within the buildings. But yeah, you turn any corner and there's music there. It's part of life there, and it's they do a second line for funerals, and it's just the essence of life.
Do you think we'll get that at Disneyland, the funeral march?
Never a funeral.
Actually, they did do it during the 50th anniversary Haunted Mansion party. They did do that. It was an after-hours event, and they did like a funeral procession sort of thing.
With a second line band?
I believe so, yeah. If I'm remembering correctly, I believe they did. So I was kidding, but I actually proved myself wrong. They've done it on special occasions, I guess.
That's amazing.
Speaking of special occasions, though, I want to talk about a piece of performance that was in New Orleans Square for a limited time that, honestly, when I think of great entertainment in New Orleans Square, this was a bazillion % appropriate and so much fun to watch at the same time, and that is Tiana's Showboat Jubilee. I wish this was still there. Did you ever get to see this in person?
You just brought back so many memories of that time. It's like 2009, right? Right when the movie
it was like when the movie came out. So yeah.
I absolutely saw it, and it was a spectacle. It was a spectacle.
It really was. It was one of the best movie promotions I've ever seen in the parks because it was so fitting, right? We got New Orleans Square. We've got this movie based in... This wasn't a stretch by any means. It was like 100% accurate. And it was so much fun because it started as, the band and the performers marching through New Orleans Square to get to the Mark Twain. And then they would load the Mark Twain riverboat, and basically I always call it like a parade on water. The boat would go by and they'd stop right in the middle where, of the rivers of America and put on this huge show. I mean, not only did we get characters Tiana, Naveen, Louis, Dr. Facilier, but we had a lot of dancers, a full band, and all of that great Randy Newman music from The Princess and the Frog. I still dream about this to this very day. It's so good.
They also had props. They had the whole shebang. I feel like, do they have fireworks, or am I making that up?
No, they had a lot of streamers and banners and stuff. Right. In fact, they had a kind of a version of those giant like windsocky things that you see at car washes a lot of time. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Where it's a big fan on the ground blowing up through a tube of fabric. They had those on the ship. They had, very cool kind of Shadow Man banner puppets that they would hang over the edge.
Yeah. That's right.
And flat instruments that they would kind of hold up and move around. They did a lot of the phantasmic handography sort of thing with banners. But I mean, this was so good. I honestly think it should have never left. And there is a part of me that's really, really hoping, with the news of Tiana taking over Splash Mountain, I really hope this comes back and becomes a regular thing. I think the chances are slim, but I would love to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be fantastic. It's something that really elevated that area. And like you said, now with Splash Mountain being taken over by Tiana and friends, it's only appropriate that the Rivers of America houses a whole new area that can sort of elevate.
Not to mention, it's also a really good socially distant show.
Yeah, another example like the Winnie the Pooh at Epcot. Yeah, absolutely.
So that is an option. Since we hit upon it, I actually haven't talked about this at all in this show. What are your thoughts on Miss Tiana and the cast of Princess and the Frog taking over Splash Mountain?
I love me some Splash Mountain. I grew up with it. And if I could have it forever, I'd keep it. But Princess and the Frog is my favorite movie.
Is it really?
Yeah, I mean, it's the Disney jazz movie. It's the actual Disney jazz movie, I think I saw it like 3 or 4 times when it was in theaters, and I've seen it so many times since. It's my favorite. So as the park will never be complete as long as there's imagination left in the world, I find that it's perfect. It's perfect. Yeah. I do feel like they're taking a whole land. Are we going to lose Winnie the Pooh because of it? Are we going to lose the Hungry Bear?
That's the right thing to do, yes. If they're going to... Right. Like, here's my thought on it, and I've written about this and stuff. But, in this, even before they announced this was officially happening, of course, this was a rumor. And it totally makes sense at Disneyland Park. My concern is more Magic Kingdom, right? Like, does it belong in Frontierland? Not really. They don't have a New Orleans Square. So... with them doing this, of course, Splash Mountain is the beginning of Critter Country currently. And by putting a Princess and the Frog attraction there, they should obviously extend New Orleans Square. And if they're going to do that, Winnie the Pooh isn't a strong enough attraction to keep Critter Country. So I'm all about, like, yes, the Bear Restaurant and Winnie the Pooh, it's time to make them part of New Orleans Square and just have a massive New Orleans Square, right?
If you had my vote, we can make Winnie the Pooh Bayou Adventure or something, and obviously Tiana's Place How can we
Tiana's
not
Place
have
makes
Tiana's
sense.
Place?
Listen, even way before this Splash Mountain thing, I don't know how French Market and or the New Orleans Cafe haven't already been turned into Tiana's Place. Like,
even for like a special, like a little special event, that would be pretty smart.
it's too perfect. So yeah, the Country Bear restaurant there, what's it called? Like, I'm blanking on the name.
The Hungry Bear.
The Hungry Bear, thank you.
Where the burgers are very good, but yeah.
Oh, okay. So the Hungry Bear could easily, I shouldn't say easily, but can be turned into Tiana's Place. And this is obviously a joke when I say this, but do you remember what was in the Winnie the Pooh space before it was Winnie the Pooh?
The Country Bear Jamboree.
It was the Country Bear Jamboree, so why not have the Country Bears throw a Mardi Gras party? Huh?
That's amazing.
Come on,
I don't know how it ties together, but for us Disney nerds, I feel like
I'd line up for it. What the heck? But you know, that's what I would like to see done. I think it'll be pretty lame if like Critter Country simply consists of Winnie the Pooh and Hungry Bear. That seems very weird.
It does, and Splash Mountain is such a deep-rooted part physically of that area that like I don't see how they could pull that off. Yeah,
so we'll see. I mean, it's the other thing that's really interesting if you're listening to the rumors of what Splash Mountain is going to become is the story very much is going to involve Lewis, the alligator. He loses his trumpet. It falls in the water, and you're going on a chase to get his trumpet. So the thing that's so fascinating to me about that is, not to bring up a sad subject, but do you remember a few years back at this point when alligators like basically had to be removed from Disney parks because a very horrible thing happened with a child in Florida? And I was I didn't realize that. I guess I never noticed that, the alligator situation. Well, they removed Lewis from the stage show in front of Cinderella Castle when that happened. Like, they were, they obviously couldn't remove him from everything overnight, but it was a problem. And I'm like, not to get morbid, but like, Walt Disney World is in Florida. The chances of something happening again is not unheard of.
Sure.
So I think it's a little ballsy of them to make the lead character of an e-ticket attraction an alligator. I don't know. Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, that was such a big piece of news. Like 10 years ago?
No, it was less than that. This was this was when Shanghai opened, so 2016.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that is, I mean, it's such a traumatic experience for the people involved, but the company altogether, because it happened on property, right?
Yeah, it happened at, I believe it was the Grand Floridian Beach. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was, Bob Iger writes about it in his book, The Ride of a Lifetime. He starts his book with that because it was the same day that he was opening Shanghai Disneyland, which was like the highest high of his career, and then also the lowest low, like on the same day or maybe a day apart.
Oh my gosh.
And it's, it's obviously a horrible, horrible thing, but I did think of that when I first heard these rumors that Lewis is really going to be featured in, very highly in this new version of Splash Mountain. I was like, ooh, did somebody think about this? Because they might want to stop and think about it. I don't know. It's interesting. In any case, on that happy note, one thing, of course, with New Orleans Square, the one thing that I'm surprised isn't played up more with live entertainment and stuff is Mardi Gras. I mean, they touch upon it when it is, Mardi Gras season. There's mention of it. You'll see stuff happening. But like, when you think of Universal Florida, are you familiar? They throw like a huge Mardi Gras celebration that's very successful for them. And I'm always baffled by the fact that New Orleans Square doesn't take advantage of this.
Yeah, I've only ever been to Universal in like June and October in Orlando, but for many years, I've seen advertisements, so I know I'm sure they go all out.
They do. They have a parade and everything, like
right. And don't they deck out like City Walk and stuff?
I don't know about City Walk, but they deck out the park and they have live bands and stuff come. Like, it's a big, big, big event for them. And I was and good for them. Like, that's awesome. I'm just like, why is Disneyland not doing this? It's so weird.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we do have a taste of it throughout the year. But it would be nice to see them go all out.
Yeah, but that's like saying, because the Magic Kingdom has a Christmas shop year round. that's enough for the holiday season. It's like, no, it's not. let's go crazy, right?
True.
But in any case, so yeah, the folks, all I gotta say with the New Orleans Square and the live entertainment that's there, I would say if you get to go to Disneyland often, go hang out in New Orleans Square for a good chunk of the day. Spend some time chilling out in New Orleans Square. Enjoy the live music. Maybe like stop and watch it for the first time, because let's face it, a lot of folks at Disney parks are just running by to the next ride or whatever and are missing like these golden nuggets of live entertainment. And then if and when you do that, definitely take the time to show your appreciation. And whenever you get asked anything about them in surveys, or you're filling those things out, which all of us get either through email or in person in the park, mention how much you love them, because that's the sort of stuff that keeps them around in the parks. And it's hugely important, I think. It's gives the parks energy, everything we've talked about. And I think, with this time that we're going through right now where entertainment is lacking, I know you and I are desperately missing live entertainment, going to the theater, even going to movies and all this stuff. I think we're in a time where people are maybe for the first time really appreciating how important entertainers are, because let's face it, like an entertainer's life is kind of considered frivolous, I think, to most people, right? Oh, it's not necessarily, and I get it. We're not doctors. We're not important in that sense, but entertainers or being entertained, in my opinion, makes life worth living. And I think people are finally feeling that. People are sick of being stuck indoors, or even if you are going outdoors, you're not having the entertainment you're used to having. I mean, gosh, the Halloween season is being canceled left and right, which is really sad. And there's just so much that I'm craving personally, and I think a lot of people are as well. So all I'm saying is tell Disney you love their live entertainment, appreciate them as soon as they come back, really applaud the performers when you see them. Don't be that person that gets up as soon as the show ends and they're taking their bows. Stay and applaud them. That's all I'm saying. So I'm getting on a soapbox here. I didn't plan on this. This just happened.
I appreciate it. Okay. I thank you for that.
Well, I do want to talk about something. The reason you came on to talk about this subject today is because you, sir, have a new jazz album that you recently released that you're the producer of called Swingin' with the Mouse.
That's right.
Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Absolutely. So, Swingin' with the Mouse is a Disney jazz series, not affiliated with the company itself, but for this special little project I was. We figured out some permissions to record new jazz versions of Disney favorites, and some that aren't really played as much as others.
Oh, random, man. I listened, and there was one track that even I was like, what is this?
Was it the James and the Giant Peach one?
It was. You have a track called My Name is James from James and the Giant Peach, which in the moment I'm like, okay, I have definitely never heard this before. And then I was like, have I seen James and the Giant Peach? I don't even know. Like, I'm not 100% sure. I can visualize certain things from it, but I don't know if I've ever sat and watched the whole thing. So,
well, you know what? Thanks to Disney Plus, you can now.
There we go.
It is. That was my childhood. James and the Giant Peach, specifically, with music by one Mr. Randy Newman.
Oh, is it? I didn't realize that. Okay.
Oh, that's a Randy Newman score. Yeah, it's a fantastic score. Richard Dreyfuss is in the movie. Some great British character actors as well take on the roles of the bugs and the ants, the aunts, not to be confused with little ants. Yeah, it's a fantastic movie, and I thought I would, sort of honor the nicheness of that song or of that movie, and along, I have one little spark in there for my Walt Disney World people.
Yes, which is great. Like, that's one of my favorites. I really, really like the One Little Spark arrangement. Some of it is all instrumental, and then others you bring in some fantastic singers as well, which is great.
Yeah. So the instrumental ones are fun. I think I had a lot more fun working with some of my personal heroes, my Disney heroes. performers that some people may recognize, like Mr. Keith David, who was Dr. Facilier in The Princess and the Frog, Courtney Reed, who was the original Jasmine in Aladdin on Broadway, Dee Dee Magno Hall, who was part of the all-new Mickey Mouse Club in the 80s, and she's also on she was just recently heavily involved in Steven Universe for Cartoon Network, which we won't talk about.
It's all right. It's all right.
And who else? Garrett Clayton, who was Tanner in Teen Beach Movie, and Emma Hunton, who is on Freeform right now, and was also in the original company of Freaky Friday, the musical.
Okay, story about this.
Yes.
Here we go. Tangent. So, Emma Hunton, whom I met, you know how I met Emma initially, right?
I don't.
Okay, so I initially...
Yeah.
With Midsummer Scream, yes.
Right, yes.
Okay, so for those of you who listening, you might know that I work with a Halloween and horror convention called Midsummer Scream, and a couple of years ago I produced and moderated the 25th anniversary Hocus Pocus panel, and I teamed up with Rockwell Table and Stage, which is also how Pablo and I know each other, and we borrowed, I guess, some of their Sanderson sisters to come perform I Put a Spell on You at the beginning of the panel, and the wonderfully talented Emma Hunton was my Winifred Sanderson for that day, which was great. Never met her before, honestly didn't know who she was, but watched her perform, and I was like, oh my gosh, this girl's fantastic. And, you know, I've run into her at Rockwell since then, and I know you're good friends with her and everything. But just recently, in fact, like a week ago, I was visiting my friend Derek in Tennessee from the Mad Chatters podcast, and I was showing him a video clip from that Hocus Pocus panel. And I think he said, is that Emma Hunton? Or I said, oh, that's Emma Hunton, or something like that. It was like, oh my gosh, from Freaky Friday? And I was like, wait a sec, what? Like, I was like, yeah. And then I was like, did I know this? And I'm like, I looked through, I listened to that Freaky Friday cast album a good amount. Like, have you listened to it? It's great.
Yeah, I got to see her at La Jolla.
Oh, okay, I'm now kicking myself not for going, because I remember, and what's the Heidi Blickenstaff, right, plays the mom.
I mean, they paired off. They were fantastic. They were
both so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Translated on audio, but in person, it was so energetic.
Yeah, and gosh, I'm kicking myself not going. That's where I went to see Hunchback, and it's a bit of a distance from where I live. Yeah. And I was like, it's Freaky Friday. Honestly, I've still to this day, I've never seen any of the movies. Oh, people are going to kill me. I've never seen them. But I did watch the Disney Channel version of the musical, which Emma was not in, unfortunately, because, you know, she was playing theater teenager, which does not translate on TV as she is an adult. But in any case, that's my Emma Hunton story. She is fabulously talented. She sings a song that honestly I'm not a huge fan of, but I love on your album, and that is My Strongest Suit from Aida. I'm like very meh about that song in the musical. Sure. But she gives a great performance. So you can send this whole thing to Emma, and as we stroke her ego, and she can enjoy that for a moment. But no, she's really she's really talented, and obviously doing some great things. And I think, you know, only has some even more incredible things in her future. So in any case, I really enjoyed that one.
I love that. Yeah, I love her too, and I agree. And her version of that song is humbly, I think, unlike the original, like you said.
Yeah.
That's sort of the thought behind this album. If you know, Keith David's song is Buzz's song from Toy Story, and I took that one, and Buzz's song being I Will Go Sailing No More. And I took that one, changed the time, changed the key. We messed with the instrumentation and stripped it down to be a very emotional take of what's meant to be orchestrally emotional. Mm-hmm. We made it a 4-piece band in Keith David's beautiful baritone voice, which I think sort of is a flavor. And then we have something like My Name is James, which is a ballad, but I turned it into a big old salsa number. You know, it's about mixing and matching different styles and honoring the company and the separate spokes, or all the spokes of it, and also honoring the different styles of jazz available.
Yeah, I do want to mention also, just because we have a lot of listeners who love this. Garrett Clayton, as you mentioned, from Teen Beach Movie, sings "Eye to Eye" as a jazz standard, in a jazz style, power line from a Goofy movie. So that's pretty epic. And then a personal favorite of mine, and I love that you put this in there, and I know how much you love this film as much as I do. We got Topsy Turvy from The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
That's right.
So is it Hunchback of Notre Dame or Hunchback of Notre Dame? I'm getting your takes on all these.
It's actually Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's how you go with it. All right.
I say Dom.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, some really great tracks on here. I'm really proud of you and happy for you having done this.
Thank you so much.
I know this was a passion project for you, and you've been talking about it to me for a very long time. And we should probably also mention that this kind of started as a live show of sorts at Rockwell, right? You do these Swingin' With series where you do jazz arrangements of different types of songs, one of which is Disney.
Yeah, I do Disney night. I've done like a Sarah Bareilles night, a Broadway night, Andrew Lloyd Webber night, Sondheim night. We've done just a bunch of different ones.
A Shrek night because you're obsessed with Shrek.
I have done a Shrek one, and it's the one I'm most proud of because I love Shrek.
your Shrek level of love is intense. Like it's like my Honey I Shrunk the Kids love.
He's a relatable
dude. I love it. So yeah, why don't you let folks know where they can get this album, because it is now available.
Awesome. So it is, you could visit www.swinginmusic.com, and that will lead you to where you could buy it on iTunes, Apple, listen to it on Apple Music, Spotify. It's available on all digital platforms. Or you could just search within your own platform, Swingin' with the Mouse. That's SWINGIN', there's no G, with the mouse.
Fantastic. Well, anything else you want to add before we get some trivia?
No, I am just grateful that we could chat. I think this is the kind of conversation I love.
Yeah, listen, my favorite thing, even if it's not my favorite thing to talk about, like the specific subject matter, I just love talking with people who are passionate about something. And your passion for live entertainment, music, jazz, Disney, so it just makes such a fun conversation for me. So thank you for coming on, and let's get to some trivia.
Do you know the answer? Get your brain gears churning and play along. It's trivia time.
Alrighty, Pablo, do you want to hit me with a trivia question first, or shall I hit you?
Let's start with you.
Okay. I want to know, where at the Disneyland Resort will you find Flambeau's Jazz Club?
Come on now.
Where at the Disneyland Resort will you find Flambeau's Jazz Club?
Flambeau's Jazz Club could be found in downtown Disney.
Oh, very good. Do you know where more specifically?
Yes. If you're facing it on the right side of Ralph Brennan's Jazz Kitchen.
Wait a second. Did you have the same trivia question? Is that why you said, oh, come on?
No, I just love it. I love it there.
Oh, okay. The way that you said, oh, come on now, I honestly thought I was stumping you. So.
No.
Wow.
I love it.
I'm very impressed. I've never actually been, so maybe can we go sometime?
Oh, let's please. I think they have a very bedazzled piano there that I love hearing different musicians play. But they also have jazz bands that play there all the time.
Like literally bedazzled?
It's literally it looks like the back of somebody's phone. It's just like bam, 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 a bunch of little, I'm sure rhinestones or something, but it's bedazzled.
Can we do this at Rockwell? Can we make this happen? Because honestly,
to make that piano look better. Yeah.
Listen, Jeff Goldblum playing a bedazzled piano is the only thing that could make Jeff Goldblum's jazz show better.
Right.
Oh my gosh. I honestly think he'd be into it and would show up with bedazzled shoes if you did that. Oh, unbelievable. Anyway, so there you go. You got it right. What is your trivia question for me?
I think I have two. Can I give you two?
Sure, give me one first, and I actually have a second one as well, so maybe we'll do the second round.
All right.
The other one, it's simple. If you knew that one, you'll definitely know this next one. But
watch me be stumped. All right. There was a cast member that sadly passed away in 2012, but he was hired by Walt Disney and played at Disneyland for 35 years. His name was Ernie McLean. I actually got to see him a couple times. What instrument did he play?
I want to say the guitar. Is that right?
That's correct.
And I believe it was somewhere in New Orleans Square. Are you looking for something more specific?
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere
it's the
more
only
specific.
one that features a guitar. I mean...
Oh, so it would have been was it the Bachelor group?
He was the first guitarist for them, and he was hired by Walt Disney.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, I played there for 35 years.
Guys, oh my gosh, like that's history, man. Like we talk about it all the time. Disneyland is the park that Walt was there to see open and built and everything. And not only the sidewalks and the walls of the buildings, but some of the people in that park, not so long ago were handpicked by Walt Disney. Incredible. It's amazing. Wow. Good trivia question. And I got it right for the win
You
there.
did.
With a little bit of help. My second one, like I said, super easy. Do you know what the name of the jazz group is that you can hear performing on Buena Vista Street in Disney California Adventure?
Oh, sure.
Of
Five
course.
and Dime.
Exactly. Like I said, it was simple. What's your second one that I'm sure is much harder?
No, I actually gave you the hard one first.
Okay.
There is a famous, many people played here, but there's a famous trumpet player that has a very many times viewed video on YouTube. Who is the trumpet player that played on the Mark Twain?
Oh, this was Louis Armstrong.
Louis Armstrong, that's correct.
Yeah, he used to play a lot in the park, at least for like anniversary stuff. I've seen him on the Mark Twain, maybe even in the Golden Horseshoe. I might be making that up. But yeah, he has some deep, obviously, jazz history, but also Disneyland history, which is pretty cool. So, Pablo, thank you so much. This was so much fun. And why don't you, you already told folks, say the website one more time where they can find your latest album, Swingin' with the Mouse.
Yeah, so it's www.swingin, without the second G, music.com. And you can just search in any musical platform for Swingin' with the Mouse.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Pablo.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much.
And folks, if you haven't listened to this past Wednesday's episode yet, be sure to check it out as we discussed the new book, The Traveler's Guide to Batuu, and share with you some secrets and stories from Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And you'll definitely want to tune into next Wednesday's episode as I have a conversation with Don Hahn, the director of Disney Plus's new documentary, Howard, about the amazing life and career of Howard Ashman, who reinvented Disney animation in the late 80s with the release of The Little Mermaid. The easiest way to make sure you don't miss any of the magic is by subscribing to Disney Coast to Coast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Wherever you search, don't forget, it's Disney with a Z, Coast to Coast. And before we go, I want to give a shout out to Sarah Hops, who has become the latest member of the DCTC community. Thank you so much, Sarah. You are helping to ensure that there are more free episodes of Disney Coast to Coast coming your way and gaining bonuses at the same time. If you'd like to join the community like Sarah, head on over to patreon.com/DisneyCTC. That's patreon.com/DIZNEYCTC. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com.